Welcome to Mastrius, the online global community for motivated creatives providing personal, meaningful, and interactive connections. Pursue your artistic dreams while getting personal feedback from world-class masters and building authentic relationships with artists just like you.
It's a way of connection with creativity being our foundation, but it's as if we're uplifting one another.
Each group follows similar monthly rhythms but is unique, like each artist in them. Find the perfect one for you.
But I would definitely say just jump in with both feet and just have fun. You just never know. It's just fantastic. I love it.
It's a relationship and getting to know the artist, and yeah, it's mentorship and friendship.
You'll begin each session with your master in warm connection. Your navigator will introduce any new members, and you'll spend a few minutes celebrating the achievements of your fellow members.
There's nothing like it. The support that you get, the inspiration, the motivation, the cheering in the background.
The first half of each session is spent reviewing the homework your master artist assigned at the end of your last session. The second half of each session is teaching curated for you. We get to know you as your navigator uses the info you provided in your new member profile form, the group discussions, and the questions you ask. They ensure your session is specially designed for you and your group. At the end of each session, your master will give you an assignment to work on until you meet again. But it doesn't end there. Between your session, your navigator will support and guide you as you connect with your group, engaging online, in our regular live events, or in your mid-month sessions.
I enjoy getting together at my mid-month meetings with my group and asking questions and sharing our celebrations and also sharing our failures and being able to laugh about it.
We're excited to have you. With Mastrius, rediscover the joy in being a creative.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Artist Diaries by Mastrius. I'm Julie deBoer, one of the founders, and I'm also an artist, a member at Mastrius, and a mentor. I have a few things I'd like to share before we dive into this interview. Today is the last day for submissions to our Christmas art show, which is open to all Mastrius members. To find the submission details, go to the events drop down in the main menu at mastrius.com and click on Art Show, and you'll find all the details on that page. Also, if you're in the Calgary, Alberta, Canada area on October 7th, get a ticket to our first big in-person event, Meet the Masters Gala, open to all, not just to members. We'll have 10 of our Mastrius master artists under one roof, 10 of them, including David Langevin, Jean Peterson, Doug Swinton, Heather Cam Forrester, Sharon Lynn Williams, Cindy Revelle, Jane Romanishko, Veronica Funk, and Bobby Dunlop. That's a mouthful. There will be painting battles, an art auction for a good cause, live panel discussions, lots of mixing and mingling with the masters, wine and appies. You don't want to miss it. Tickets are buy one, get one half off until midnight today, if you didn't hear, so go grab a couple. And those are in the events drop down at mastrius.com as well. And the art auction will be live tomorrow. So check back there and you can participate from anywhere in the world. You don't have to be local and you don't have to be a member. Proceeds actually go to support the work of For the Sparrows, which is a social enterprise here in Calgary, Alberta that empowers survivors of sexual exploitation. For the Sparrows is the organization that makes all of our Mastrius t-shirts. All right, if you're new to Mastrius, welcome. And hello to our members. Mastrius is a supportive, non-competitive, goals-focused community for artists. And I will talk more about Mastrius after the event is done for those who might be interested in learning more about the community and how you can get involved. And of course, I'll give away a 1-month events membership to one lucky non-member who sticks around after the event. All right, so I'd like to invite Anae Jones to join me on the stage if you aren't already. Welcome, Anae, how are you?
I'm great, how are you, Julie?
I'm good. It's nice to see you.
You too.
Nice to share the stage with you. I think this is our first time.
I think so.
But not the last, probably. So Anae is a friend, a colleague, and my interviewer today for today's live recording of our very first episode of the Artist Diaries. Anae Jones is an artist here in Alberta, Canada, with a background in communications. Her first passion was writing. She focused a lot of years also on raising her family, and when she found herself at a stage where she was looking to carve out some unique stuff and time for herself, a friend invited her to a paint night. Art kind of landed in her lap, and she was hooked. Missing her arms from birth, Anae paints with her feet, showing that where there's a will, there's a way, and she's an inspiration daily to us at Mastrius. She says, painting gives me this mental release and helps me set aside some of the cares that weigh on my mind. Particularly when you have a disability, things can feel really heavy. I don't try to talk about it too often. I want to focus on what I can do. It brings me a lot of joy and satisfaction to see what I can create. As her 2 kids are nearly grown, Anae is part of 4 Mastrius mentorship groups, expanding what and how she paints, and works with us here at Mastrius as a navigator as well, helping create the same place of belonging for others that she found here at Mastrius. And I feel really fortunate to consider you a friend and a colleague, and I'm really glad that you agreed to interview me today.
Oh, my pleasure, Julie. And I feel the same way about you. I'm so grateful to call you a friend and colleague as well.
Thank you.
Julie was the one that actually introduced me to Mastrius. I was looking for somewhere to learn art and improve my technical skills. And Julie just fairly kindly said, why don't you check out, it was Leveling Up then, check out Leveling Up and see. And so I'm so grateful for Julie's invitation. So I'd like to take a turn and introduce Julie. It's probably possible that this woman needs no introduction. Despite being an introvert, she's very generous with her story online and in the Mastrius community. And that's been such a great gift. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about her today. But for those of you who are fresh and new, please let me catch you up. Julie deBoer is a professional artist of acrylic landscapes, very recognizable by her bold and sweeping prairie skies. Self-taught, Julie successfully painted for 7 years and was represented in several galleries before she gathered her courage to go out into the world and take her first workshop. That just amazes me. 7 years.
Me too.
Her first workshop was with Canadian artist David Langevin, and interestingly enough, he was my first Mastrius mentor. Awesome. His painting technique changed her perspective on painting, and his ongoing mentorship changed her professional life. Mm-hmm. Wanting more artists to experience the joy and success she found in relationship and mentorship, Julie co-founded Mastrius, a global online community where artists are mentored by master and professional artists from the comfort of their own studios. And I think we all love that, being in our own studios. Mm-hmm. Julie has since been mentored by several master artists at Mastrius, including Mark Heine, Heather Pant, and Mitchell Abala, and mentors aspiring artists herself. She paints and works from her home studio in Bears Paw, Alberta, Canada, where she is also happily exhausted of a mother of 3 and married to her best friend and business partner. Julie, your company, Mastrius, has had such a huge impact on my life as an artist, and I'm thrilled to get to know your creative journey better. Thank you for being the first guest on Artist Diaries.
Thanks, Anae. That was lovely. I've never been introduced before. My heart is full. Thank you for your kind words.
Welcome. But I know you have a few more things you want to talk about before we get into the
I just thought I would intro the Artist Diaries. So if you remember, you know that I've been interviewing quite a few master artists here at Mastrius. And many of you have been in the audience when I did. And what has struck me every time, and what's really blessed me, I have to say, is the vulnerability, the courageous sharing, and the inspiring encouragement that our community has received from every artist we've interviewed. And this is what has motivated us to launch a podcast and call it the Artist Diaries, digging deep beyond the palette. Together, we're creating this life-giving, safe community for artists, and you guys are as much a part of that as I am. And it's the community that's made this such a wonderful place to grow. The Artist Diaries comes out of that. It's one way for us to share that experience with the world beyond our community, because we want to actually make the world better and more beautiful, of a place, of a community for people like artists to grow, to be pushing our passions together while lifting each other up and learning from each other's stories. So this is why we thought we'd launch the Artist Diaries with my story too. And I commit to being as open and vulnerable as the artists before me have been. But I do look forward to digging deep for sure.
Wonderful. Thank you, Julie. So should we dive right into your interview?
Let's do it.
Firstly, thank you for being willing to be vulnerable. That is sometimes really hard to share. So I appreciate that you're setting the example here and opening up so we can all learn from your experience. The first thing that I want to cover is you had never planned on creating Mastrius or being a founding member or even becoming an artist. And part of that journey for you was learning to stop making plans. Could you walk us through that?
Sure can. So as you know, my husband Mike is our CEO at Mastrius, and he and I have been married for 25 years now, which is amazing. I don't feel old enough to be able to say that. But we learned early on, because we were planners and we thought about the future and we like to dream about what we might do and where we might go. But what we found consistently is every time we made a plan, we'd get this curveball thrown into our lives, and we'd have to let go of that plan and kind of pivot and go a totally different direction. And this just kept happening. So after a while, we laughed and said, well, we probably should stop making plans, because I think God is kind of laughing every time we do. But the plans that have come to us have been extraordinary. And I know part of it too is marrying Mike. I didn't realize what a dreamer, kind of big picture thinker he was, and how he didn't really see obstacles the way that I did. He saw opportunities and challenges where I saw kind of barriers. So being married to him as well for 25 years has changed my perspective and opened me up a lot more to what might be, and to lean a bit more towards the adventure side and trusting things will work outside and not trying to plan everything down to the T.
So plans are still important to an extent, but being able to be open to a different plan is something that you've obviously had to experience.
Yeah, there's like, if I look back on my life, we've done things I never planned, and that seems to be just consistent with me. Like we adopted our third child from Haiti. Adoption had never been even on my radar. And what else? We helped start a brand new church in the inner city of Calgary, and something that kind of we fell into, which was such a great experience. Lots of stories like that that were not part of the plan, but were so good. So same with, I guess, becoming an artist. It's funny because my mom is an artist, and she started painting when we were little kids. She, I think, needed an outlet and wanted to do something nice for herself. So she bought some paints and canvas and started painting. And she taught herself and was naturally talented. And she built a career as a self-taught artist, a very good career in Alberta. and she did great for, I don't know, she's been going at it for 40 plus years. And so I had the privilege of watching her do that and launch it on her own. And that was just a normal part of my childhood. Art was always part of my childhood. And my brother, sister, and I were always very creative too. So that was always encouraged. But it's funny that never again did I plan to follow in her footsteps.
Right. What was your plan initially? Did you say, I want to be an artist like mom, or did you want to do something else?
Yeah, no, I have to say my only aspirations were to be, and not to say only, shouldn't use that word, but to be a wife and a mom. Otherwise, I wasn't a risk taker. I was really shy and more of a fly on the wall to life than I was one to dive in. So yeah, my dreams were, you know, wife and mom. And I went to university mostly to kill time because I wasn't a wife or a mom yet. So I had to do something. And my dad said, don't go to art school, get a real degree, something you can fall back on if life doesn't turn out as you had planned, which I respect. And so I went to university to be a teacher. Actually, I did 2 years of an education program and then switched into nursing and became an RN. So I did get a degree that I could fall back on, and I literally have never used it because I ended up just following like step by step in my mom's footprints. I had kids, and we had kids young. And when they were little and started going to school, I found myself bored and wanting to do something that was just for me. And I went out and bought some paints and canvases and taught myself how to paint exactly the same thing my mom did. Very different style. And of course, the journey has been different. But yeah, that's the short version, I guess. Of
right. And obviously becoming an artist wasn't exactly in your plans, but looking back now, how your plans changed, what are some of those lessons you learned?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think a theme that I have learned, and it's something I did want to share today, is about trust. So faith is a big part of me and my story, and it touches kind of every part of my life. It's not like I go to church on Sunday and I'm a churchy church person, right? It's a faith that inspires and guides me and opens me up, is really what it does, to trust that there's a good plan for my life and that I can kind of let go and just follow and keep walking forward. And yeah, so that has been the lesson I think I've learned throughout life, is that the plans for me are good and someone has got my back, and that I don't need to worry so much, that everything is going to be actually not just okay, but is going to be much better than I ever hoped for or imagined. And so having that as kind of my foundation has taught me how to walk through fear, through to courage. And of course, that's a huge thing as an artist, something that I think most of us have to tackle and deal with every time we put a paintbrush to canvas.
I think, I mean, regardless of what people believe, I think that is a theme that everyone can apply to their life, thinking, you know, limiting yourself and thinking these are just my plans, and then being open to, you know, a better plan or a different plan, something that takes you where and has you do things that you never thought that you would do before. And I know I've experienced that a lot in my life, things that, like becoming a mother for the first time, like I just knew I always wanted to be a mother, but obviously I have some physical challenges, and that was, you know, something my husband and I had to kind of face together, and, you know, and trust, and just trust that things were going to be okay. And they were.
Yeah.
So I do want to ask you, what were some of the challenges you initially faced as you decided to start pursuing art?
What are some of the challenges? Well, I didn't have a confidence issue as far as the painting went. Which is interesting because once you hear more of my story, I was very shy. I would say not a courageous person, very introverted. But when I started painting, when I went to the store to buy canvases, I bought the biggest ones they had. I didn't even think about small canvases. I don't know why. Maybe because I had big walls to fill. But yeah, and I bought the paint and the biggest brushes they had. And my first paintings, my first one was a 40 by 60. My second was a 36 by 36. And I just kept doing these large pieces and they were very bold. And so it's funny looking back to see the person that was trying to come out of me and was showing up on the canvas seemed very different than the person doing the work. Yeah, so that kind of makes me giggle looking back, that now that I'm a little bit further along in life and have discovered the bold person that was hiding inside of me, the courageous person that she was trying to get out all the while. And that boldness was an asset. It really did help me, I think, get noticed early on. As far as challenges go, the biggest one probably was the chasm of stuff I didn't know, that I was completely unaware of. My didn't knowedness, my ignorance was bliss. Like, you just don't know what you don't know. And so I kept going as a self-taught artist, and I have no issues with being self-taught. We have some of our master artists at Mastrius are self-taught, and I think that's fantastic. For me, the journey was different, and so I think my biggest challenge probably was more my fear of how I had to fill in those gaps. So being an introvert, and like you said, I was already gallery represented and kind of got well on my way before I had enough courage to go to a workshop, which seems so silly looking back, but it really was a barrier for me. So that was probably my biggest challenge, was reaching outside of myself for some community. Fortunately, I was living in Inglewood. If you know Calgary, it's like the cool inner city neighborhood. And we were there for 10 years. And fortunately, it was a very artsy neighborhood. And one of my neighbors, Karen Bray, we discovered each other. We were friends. Our kids were going to school down the road together. And she was an artist, so she kind of helped me along. And then we met another artist neighbor, and we started painting together and connecting, and then had our first art shows out of my house in Inglewood. And that was how we all launched. And I think that's a common story for artists. And in Inglewood, it was just fantastic because it's such a supportive neighborhood. So we would have these in-house art shows, and we'd sell out. Like, we'd have, 40, 50 people from the neighborhood come pack in and just buy everything.
Oh, that's lovely. I wish I lived in a community like that.
I know. I was really set up well for success. And to have like Karen on my side, because she went to art school, she had a lot more experience than I did. And so she did save me a lot of work, just teaching me a few basic things. But I think that was probably my biggest limiting factor, with myself.
Awesome. That's, so insightful and interesting, because we all have different obstacles that kind of stop us. Right. But I love how there was this like lion behind you the whole time, but you were just, this shy little person thinking you couldn't do those things, but you could. You just had to let it out. And it's interesting how, when we do art, a different personality can emerge. Mm-hmm. And I think that's super neat. And talking,
one thing
go ahead.
Sorry, I'm just gonna say, because you mentioned lion, those personality tests you can do where you can find your spirit animal, kind of what animal you would be if you were an animal. I did that a few years ago, before I kind of went through this other journey in my life. And my spirit animal was a fawn, a baby deer. And I was like, oh yeah, that seems really like a good fit. I agreed.
Yeah.
And and I was like, yeah, I am a baby deer. Yeah. And so I can take care of myself and be kind to myself. But anyways, in the last 4 years, I've gone through a whole nother journey that we'll probably tackle. And I did the same sort of test afterwards. And I was a lion. And I was like, oh my, I've become something that eats fawns. But I thought it was just so
become a leader.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, no, lions are yeah, not a fawn. So I'm still adjusting, and I think everyone around me is still adjusting to Julie a little different. Now a little more confident and much more sure and comfortable in my own skin.
I love that. And I mean, a lot of that has come because you've been willing to embrace something new and embrace a different plan, which is wonderful. So when you were when we were just talking a moment ago, you're talking about how you started out with these big pieces and these bold things came out of you right away. I'd like you to talk a bit about finding your style. And I know you've mentioned before that you hated your style and you still struggle with it. So can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is actually kudos to Sharon Lynn Williams, one of our masters, who kind of put the idea in my head when she heard my story about how I found my style. She's like, oh, Julie, you need to share that with our community. They need to hear that story. You should be interviewed. And then, of course, Julie gets an idea and goes, oh, well, what can we do with this? Welcome, the Artist Diaries. Yeah, so when I started painting, I think it took, I started painting, and then I painted for a couple of years, and then I started to really wrestle with my style, and that wrestling took 2 years. So I wanted to paint like the artists whose work I loved, right? And I think that most of us do. So I loved work that was much more loose and textured and more brush marks and that sort of style, like I might think of Min Ma, Connie Geertz, definitely. Anyway, so for 2 years, I worked and worked and worked to try to hone my technique or my style towards that. And for 2 years, it felt so unnatural and like I was banging my head against a wall, and it really was sucking the joy out of the experience because I could not get there. And maybe if I had persisted, maybe it would have come. But this little, tap on the shoulder, a little voice told me that maybe this isn't the way it's supposed to go. Maybe the journey isn't supposed to be hard like this. Maybe it's supposed to be very natural and life-giving and fun. So of course, I heard God challenge me and say, what are you doing? You've already got everything you need. You just need to let it out. It's already there. Just let it out. And so I decided one day that I would stop doing what I was doing. I would just put paint on my brush and I would just see what my body did with it, literally with my hand holding the brush, what my arm would do and what came naturally out of me. And then I would just chase that. I would just really, really pursue it. And sure enough, what I was doing with this more marking and blotchy work started to come out and sweep, and I couldn't thin out my paints enough to chase down what was coming out of me. And so that's where it came out of. And as I pursued that, that's when I got gallery representation, like almost immediately. yeah, from a big gallery in a really great spot. They said, oh, they saw this one painting that really demonstrated what I was up to. And they said, oh, I could sell 10 of those. Can you start in 6 weeks and have 8 paintings ready? And that was kind of the start of that journey.
Can you talk a bit about what is it like to approach a gallery? I mean, that's something that's on my list of things to do, and I haven't done it yet. So do you have any advice for us people who are like little mice here and afraid?
Yeah,
to
sure.
approach a gallery? What do you need to know?
Yeah, what do you need to know? I feel like things have changed too in the last 10 years or so.
Okay.
The first 2 galleries I got into, I walked in the door and introduced myself. And I don't know that that works in every gallery. I've heard that some galleries don't like that.
Okay.
And you have to check on a gallery's website and see kind of what their process is. Sometimes you can submit directly and they let you know. We review every quarter and we'll let you know if we want to talk to you. But yeah, the first 2 I went into, I just introduced myself and yeah, and had very a warm reception. I think too, it was because my work was bold and big, and my style was coming out at that point. So yeah, I don't know. Even now, I don't feel like I'd walk into a gallery and introduce myself if I wanted representation there. I think I'd start doing what our masters have said and start going to shows at that gallery and meeting artists when they're there doing a show and trying to be part of that network and be part of the community. And I mean, the first 2 galleries I got in that way, and since then they reach out to me, which is of course much easier and more comfortable for me. But the one I'm at now, they reached out to me thanks to David Langevin, who kind of plugged me to them. And when I met them, they were like, oh, have you been to the gallery before? And I was like, yeah, I've been here like 1,000 times. It's one of my favorite galleries. And they said, oh, why didn't you say hello? Like, oh, because you wouldn't like that, would you? Do you really want artists to come? So I don't know. That's a really tricky question. I think you need to feel them out, and if they're really friendly and nice, then feel free to talk about yourself. And definitely have to get comfortable promoting yourself because nobody else will. You have to be your biggest fan, and you have to practice courage if you want to get somewhere. That said, you don't have to work with galleries anymore, right? Like you can make it without too. So for the introverts out there.
How far along in like developing your style should you be though? Because I've talked to one gallery before, and it was just because we were at Lake Louise and I went in the gallery and kind of talked to the fellow and just mentioned, oh, I'm an artist too. And then the next thing I know, he gives me a business card and I haven't done anything with it because I just got a little scared. Because I felt like, okay, well, I looked at all the other art that was there and like, I'm not there yet, or we kind of judge ourselves that it's hard to recognize your own style. So did you have something that helped you recognize I do have a style?
Yeah, and it's something that also at Mastrius, I love to talk about, and in my mentorship group, I'm working with aspiring artists, and part of what I want to focus on is helping them to find their style, to find their voice, and for us to kind of learn how to hone that together. Because I'm going to rabbit trail here, because learning from someone who's walked the road before you, someone has a solid style and technique and is a master or professional artist like myself, the best way to learn is to copy, right? Is if you're going to learn my technique, you're probably going to paint like me or do a painting of mine using my technique, that sort of thing. But then the idea is not to stay there. Then the idea is to take the technique you've learned and to apply it to your style and to incorporate it. Yeah, to incorporate it in what you're already doing. Because there's no point, like if you learn to paint my way, that's boring because there's already a Julie deBoer, but you have something unique in you that is going to be like one of a kind, right? There is no other N.A. Jones in the world, and no one's going to put paint down like you do,
Right.
or have the vision of for your composition and your colors that you do. So yeah, so that is something I appreciate is tricky at Mastrius, because we're very purposefully copying and learning from our mentors. Anyways, but that's kind of the idea, is push through. Yeah, I didn't
through the same process yourself. I mean, you were trying to paint like other people for a time until you stopped fighting it and just let the paint come out the way it wanted to come out through your fingers, which I just love.
Yeah. And another thing is, if you feel like you don't have a style, go to your friend or your neighbor or whomever has been watching you paint or buying your artwork and say, hey, do you see my style? Like if my painting was in the middle of a gallery with a bunch of other artists, would you be able to pick out which one is mine? And I bet you 100% that they're going to say, oh yeah, I definitely would pick yours out because you have a style. So I think artists in general can't see it. Other people see it first, and then the other people teach them what their style is, and then we start to see what it is. So yeah, definitely be.
It's like the same thing when, you know, someone says, oh, your kids look just like you, and you're like, can't see it at all.
Yeah. Well, and to finish that, sorry, that one thought too, is I hated my style when I embraced it, right?
Yes.
You mentioned that. I did not like it. And for years I did not like it, but everyone else really responded to it. And it was authentically how it was coming out of me. So it took years more to let go of, I guess, that whole expectation part of what my work might look like. That took a long time. And now I love it, and I understand it's unique. And I don't always love the paintings I produce, but I appreciate the way I'm able to put paint down, and that it is unique, and that I'm growing that, and I'm trying to make it more and more what I love.
Oh, I love to hear that. And that you've learned to love your style, because it is a really beautiful style, Julie, and so unique. I've not seen anything like it before. So
thank you. It was hard one.
But that really leads us into our next conversation, is you had to have a lot of courage to get yourself there and to accept a style that maybe you weren't sure you wanted to have, but that you knew was true to yourself. Can you talk about the struggle of being authentic versus having the courage to put your work out there to be judged? Because obviously if you're feeling kind of like nervous about, I don't love this style, that can kind of feed into that fear of putting your work out there in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you've known me for more than 5 minutes, you've probably heard me say that I think artists are the most courageous people on the planet, because the world demands us to be authentic, right? And to be expressive, and to put our interpretations and our experiences and our passions out on a canvas or board or whatever, and hang it on a wall, and then let everybody judge it and say, not my cup of tea, or oh, I love that, or I wouldn't spend that much money on that painting, or will you give that to me for free? Because North Americans generally don't value artists' hard work. But I think, yeah, it takes a ton of courage to do that, to be authentic, right? And I'm still on that journey, totally still. I have not arrived there. I look at other artists like Ardith Goodwin and Jean Peterson, and those whose artwork is very expressive and unapologetic. And I love it. And the message I keep hearing from them, which is what I'm trying to practice and understand and really accept, is that if you don't put out what's in your heart, kind of the stuff that's bubbling out of you, that you'll never really be a happy artist, and you probably won't be that successful. So it's not until you really are honest in that process that those things will come. And I really struggle with that, but it's something I'm definitely chasing down now. I'm working with Melissa Galazzi is my new mentor at Mastrius.
That's exciting.
I know, she's an abstract artist and she's just gonna kick my butt. I'm so excited.
Yes, I started as a abstract artist earlier this year too, and that's not what I paint at all, but it gifted me with something else in my art that I needed, which is so good.
Tell me more about that. I want to hear more about that.
Well, I think one thing, like, I would really like to pursue it, but I don't want to like let go of. I like to be a little more tight and representational in my work, but the abstractions allowed me to just play and like it's neat how when Pam Beer was telling me there should be emotions in your work and it should be like representing how you're feeling, I wasn't sure I really got that, and I'm like, well, how do you paint a mood, and how do you paint how you're feeling? And we came back from holidays, and it was right before the Mastrius art show, and I was so stressed out, and I did another take on my abstract series that we were working on, and they came out really cluttered and way too busier than I wanted to. But I wasn't like upset that had happened, because I realized it was like how I was feeling inside. I was feeling everything was feeling really cluttered and crazy in my life, and so it was. Yeah, I like abstraction for the release that it gives me, and just the freeness of it, I guess. So
yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant.
Yeah, well, you'll have a great time learning abstraction, Julie.
Well, I don't even know if she's going to make us paint abstractly, but she's definitely going to make us dig deeper, right? And to really, find out why we're doing what we do. Yeah.
So we do have a question from the audience. What were the first greatest learnings from your mentor?
Okay. Probably at the beginning, it was more the technical piece, right? The learning compositional elements, like I'm a nut bar for contrast. I want to contrast everything, whether it's the value full, 0 to 10. I love to have in every painting, warm, cool, contrast, hard lines and soft blending. You name it, I that's what I'm looking for. But I didn't really know that that's what I was doing. So my first learnings were figuring out, that's why I do it that way. Because most artists, I think, innately have some natural skill. And then once I learned that, then I was able to kind of learn the new things that I hadn't done yet, which was more so composition as far as how you lay out a painting, and about, where you put your points of interest. And then with my flowy style, I got really excited about using that to control a viewer's eye, like to draw them through the painting the way I wanted them to experience it. And so I'm really intentional about that stuff now. But I'd say, the first things I learned were understanding why I was doing things a certain, or why I was craving, or why I kept repeating certain elements. And then once I figured that out, I could apply it in different ways that were more useful. For sure.
That's awesome. I can really relate to that, because when I started my first Mastrius session, I had no idea what an underpainting was or what any art terms were. And now I can't unknow what I know now.
Yep.
And I mean, I think that causes us to look at our work differently, as I'm sure you look at your work differently than you did 7 years ago. And maybe that was part of you learning to love your style too, is that you couldn't unknow what you knew.
Yeah, that's true. Once you gain information, good luck being ignorant again.
It's true. And I always joke with my husband, we're driving places and I'm seeing all these like colors and stuff. My art brain can't shut off. I think about like hidden, like I think about lost edges and colors and how to like make those things seem farther away. And it's such a gift. It really is.
Yeah, you really do see the world differently. Absolutely.
Yeah, so a few more questions here, Julie. I wanted to ask you about the importance of fear and how it leads to courage and that importance of adversity.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago, so I'm a late bloomer, I think, but what I learned just a few years ago that was such a game changer for me was learning what fear really was. Before I knew, I found fear to be embarrassing, kind of like I was a little bit ashamed of myself that I was so afraid of so much. And then I don't know who said it or where I read it, but that fear actually can't exist without courage being present, and vice versa. So you can't have courage unless you are afraid, right?
Right.
Courage just doesn't exist unless there is fear. And so then I looked at my life and like, well, I'm afraid of almost everything. And then I realized that, oh, that's because I'm walking through it, not running away from it, not, saying, no, I'm not going to do that and closing the door. It was because I was staying there in it or walking through it. And so I learned that I'm experiencing so much fear because I'm really trying to be courageous. Right. And once I flipped that coin, wow, did fear lose its power, that negative power. I think fear it's great now because I understand it better. So for those who are out there, and I think artists have to tackle this all the time because of the nature of what we do, is that it's good. It's a sign that you're being courageous. Let that be a crown on your head that you are standing in courage, or you're walking through fear courageously. So
it really is a sign of growth. Are there some things that you're particularly proud of that you're able to do now because you were willing to run into the storm instead of running away from the storm?
Yeah. Oh, life is hard. It can be so hard. And I'm glad that that's not a unique thing, that is just a human thing. We all have to walk through some hard valleys. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is part of the vulnerable part. A few years ago, I realized in my life that, in particular, my relationships, I was really struggling in relationships and how to have life-giving relationships that weren't hard and didn't give me anxiety, and I didn't fear, like I was worried about losing friends and not being good enough, and it was really becoming a problem. I had hoped it would become easier as I grew and became older and wiser and blah, blah, blah. But it didn't. It got worse and worse and worse. And eventually I had to stop and say, what am I going to do about this? And fortunately, a good friend of mine had been through a program actually that helped him walk through some stuff. And so I did this program. It was really intensive, like 5 months that I gave my life to kind of diving in the deep with myself, acknowledging stuff that happened when I was little that I had packed away as just normal. And it had been labeled all very normal as a kid. Stuff that I'd forgotten about. If I imagined my childhood as a filing cabinet, there would be this massive file called normal with all these things sticking out of it, and then a little skinny file of really bad, and then a skinny file of really good, but everything was lost in the normal, and it took me a long time to organize that and pull stuff out and realize, oh yeah, that was not normal. That was not good. Anyways, so going through the process of acknowledging that stuff and mourning really a lot of stuff that I never gave any emotion to. A lot of anger had to be processed, a lot of pain. And that journey was brutal. It was the hardest thing I think I've ever done in my life. And then my sister died right in the middle of it. And she was we did not have a healthy relationship, and a lot of childhood stuff there too. So having to say goodbye to her and kind of end on good terms, which thank God literally that he set us up for 10, kind of the last 10 days of her life were beautiful, and she was able to be very loving, and so yeah, it was a total gift. Even though I kind of lost 40 years with her, I got those 10 days. And walking through that, opening myself up to healing, because that's not something that I don't think a person can do on their own. It's something that is kind of a two-person job in my mind. And I'm not done healing, and I'm not done journeying. I'll never be done, but
we're always growing, right?
Yeah. But that 5 months I'm proud of. I'm really proud that I did that, and it's been for a benefit to everyone around me.
Right. And it took a lot of courage for you to do that.
Yeah, I can't imagine if I didn't, the mess that my life might be. But I guess the what's cool looking back, and this is something I'd encourage people to do, is stop and look back once in a while and see what you've done, and see what you've walked through, and see how it's changed you and grown you. And it wasn't until I had been through that process and I came out more like a lion than a fawn that Mastrius, kind of God put that in front of Mike and I was able to launch it with my network across Canada of artists that I never would have done that in a million years. Never. If you told me 4 years ago that I would be here in this moment, I would have laughed and said, no, you obviously don't know me very well. And so, yeah, like what a huge gift. And I'm really glad that I did that hard walk, and happy to be here.
I'm glad you did too, Julie, because you've changed so many people's lives through Mastrius, mine included. I can't even imagine my life without it now. And I always tell people, like, I came to learn from the masters because I want to get better at painting, and had different things happen in my life. Same thing. A couple of years ago, you'd ask me, what do you want to do? I would never have said, I want to be an artist.
Yeah, here you are.
Yeah, but and I came and realized I needed this community, which you guys have done such a beautiful job in creating. So
well, and I'm going to point that back though, because I think that's been a community effort. I think that Mike and I and our team have provided the opportunity and the place, and then you all came and made it this amazing, safe, life-giving place where we hear so often, I came for the mentor, and then I found this community, and I'm here, and this is where I'm staying. So that, yeah, I've learned as much from the community for sure as anyone else.
Oh, that's beautiful. It's always great to be part of an organization that's artists helping artists, and I just love that. We do have a lot of questions coming in, Julie.
Sure, I'll stop talking.
Yeah, one was, what was the name of the program that you took?
It's kind of, I don't even know if it exists anymore. It's a Christian program called Journey Canada, and it just helps people walk through kind of brokenness in general in relationships and that sort of thing.
Right. And did you find, going through something like that obviously has informed your art in a new way. How do you think that informed your art positively? Did it change something for you?
Yeah, I think that I'm owning it more instead of resisting it. I feel like I feel more of this relief, like, oh, now I can finally just be the person that has always been trying to come out of me, that lion more type person, kind lion, is good, and don't hold her back. Don't, like, the pendulum can swing, right? So
right.
I have to be careful of the pendulum swinging to the other end and being aggressive and too forceful or whatever. but to embrace that person inside of me who is, good and courageous and in process, right? I have not arrived, and that's kind of the whole point, is that we're in that space. We're not always trying to be down the road. We don't always want to be looking back and remembering about all the stuff, but to just be in the moment. And I might be dead tomorrow, so I'm going to just enjoy as much as I can today. And every day I have to remind myself of that, because it's not my wiring. It's not my wiring. Mm-hmm.
Yes, live in the moment, and that can be really difficult. We do have a question. Did you find it hard to call yourself an artist as opposed to just trying to paint?
Yeah, and I might speak to imposter syndrome here, because I hear that too about, I can't even call myself an artist yet, from our artists who are creating beautiful work. Yeah, definitely wearing that hat, saying that I am an artist, like that's a statement. That is, you're labeling yourself, and it's good. And that definitely was a step. I think professional artist, when I tried throwing that word in there, that was tough. That took a long time. And imposter syndrome, we talk a lot about at Mastrius, and what I've learned is that everyone pretty well has it, and so we don't need to feel bad about it. Don't feel ashamed about it. Don't be embarrassed about it. It's a tool. I'm certain it's just a tool that we use to practice putting on a new hat, and to practice and to practice and to practice until that darn hat feels good. And I wear it every day without even thinking now. So fake it till you make it, right? That's been like my life's motto. And I don't feel bad about it, because that's the only way I can train myself to put on, a new shoes, or a new hat, or a new career.
You say it enough until you believe it, right?
Yeah. It's just like love. Love isn't really a feeling. It's something that you have to choose and to do and to practice.
Right.
And if you do that enough, your heart will follow. And I feel the same as with imposter syndrome. Something similar is happening there.
Yes, lots of us struggle with that imposter syndrome. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Couple more questions, because I can't believe we're almost to the hour, Julie. Where did this go? So we have a question. Do you feel pressure to stick to a certain style now that you've had success as an artist, or are you able to still take risks in your work?
Yeah, that's a fair question. I definitely have a hard time continuing to push it and to try new things. I would say, pigeonholed early on, because the galleries that launched me said, yeah, but we only want prairie artwork. So I don't want to see any of this other stuff you're doing. And I was like, well, for me, being an artist meant being galleries represented. I didn't really, because that's the way my mom went, I never really saw it in another way. I didn't know there was a different way of doing it. So I knowingly allowed myself to be pigeonholed, and I accepted that. And so it's been hard to break out of that. Working with Mitchell Albala, he really pushed me there. And so I've started doing not so much of the sky, more of the land. And now I know that Melissa Galassi is going to push me some more. I don't give myself a ton of time to play and experiment, but I'm definitely aware of my growing edges now, thanks to mentorship. And I am pursuing those and pushing those and trying to honor kind of the stuff in me that's bubbling up as I consider which way to take my work.
Right. I love that. And not letting it all boil over, because sometimes we can just keep on dreaming so big that we don't get anything done because we can't contain it, right?
Yeah.
So another couple little questions here. Well, not little questions, but quick questions. Julie, where do you see yourself in 10 years from now?
I I resist making plans, but I dream of teaching in like Italy or, so many of our masters, when I'm on a call with them, they're in an airport because they're traveling between workshops in some glorious country and workshops in some other glorious country. So I dream of that one day. But yeah, we have big plans for Mastrius, and my plan is always to balance my art career with whatever other thing we have going on.
And of course, you're a mentor now at Mastrius, and your group is full. So certainly members who want to join your group can get added to that wait list. Our last question of the night, Julie, what does arrived look like for you?
Honestly, arrived for me is heaven. It's not in this life. I can't imagine ever thinking I've arrived. And I think you almost lose out when you feel like you do, because then you just stop looking and growing and exploring. I plan on hitting the grave at full tilt, kind of skidding in sideways, exhausted. And
with your paintbrushes and palette, right?
Yeah, I don't know about arrived. Not really comfortable with that word. I think just because I've learned so many times, like I don't know where life will take us, because we don't hold on to anything. Yeah.
Oh, and life is a lot bigger than that. Than realize.
God's plans have been way, 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 way bigger than mine. So we'll see.
Julie, it's been such a pleasure speaking with you tonight, and so much that you've talked about has really resonated in my heart, and I hope it's resonated with our guests tonight. Getting lots of nice comments from people thanking you for sharing. And I'm going to turn it back to you, Julie, to talk about Mastrius, but thank you for everyone for being part of the launch of the Artist Diaries, and forward to the next one.
Yeah, I know. So exciting. Thank you, Nate. You're a fantastic, easy person to talk to. Thank you for guiding me through my own story. I appreciate that.
Oh, my pleasure. All right.
Thanks, folks, for coming. Yeah, Anae, you have a meeting to get to. So
a mid-month meeting with my mentorship group. So
awesome.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Have fun. Bye. Thanks, everyone, for coming. Really nice that you could join us and hear my story. It's weird to be interviewed, but it's cathartic as well. Felt good to share some of that stuff. Thank you for listening and your questions, and for being open to all of my stuff. So yeah, as promised, I'm going to chat a bit about Mastrius, because we have this fantastic thing going on. And if you're not aware of it or part of it, we would love for you to join us. So I'll talk a little bit about what we do at Mastrius, how you can join the community if you're interested, and I'll give away a 1-month events membership to a non-member, obviously. So we do a live event like this every week at Mastrius. We're all about getting together and interacting, being in relationship with each other, and connecting with mentors as well. The best and fastest way to grow is not to try to figure it out on your own, but to learn from someone who has walked the road before you. And often we just don't know what we don't know. We don't know where our knowledge gaps are, and that's where mentors can fill in for us. Thanks for your comments. I'm reading those. That blesses me. So at Mastrius, we are growing this non-competitive, supportive, goals-focused community. We are actually reaching our goals together. It's not just a feel-good, have fun sort of place. Although there's a lot of that going on as well. So mentorship is more than teaching. You've probably been to an art workshop, unless you're as introverted as I was. And at an art workshop, a very valuable experience as well. But it's more of a download of information in a large group with little time for kind of one-on-one questions. And then you're sent back to your studio to figure the rest out on your own with little to no follow-up or feedback on what you're doing. And so mentorship is filling in those gaps where you're still getting the teaching, but it's broken down into smaller pieces, month over month. And then you have time to practice what you've learned before you get more and more stuff dumped on you. And then you come back to get feedback on what you've been practicing, and then to learn the next part, and then to practice that for a month, come back, get more feedback, learn more, and the cycle continues. It is the most effective way to learn. It's just a rich cycle. Anyway, so Mastrius, when you join us in a mentorship capacity, you would be picking a mentor. We would put you in a small group of artists who are at the same stage that you're at. So you're going to find a lot of commonality in your group, and you're going to be mentored by that master artist or professional artist every month. In between those monthly sessions, there's lots going on. So we have these weekly events, which are free to members to attend. It's part of your membership. And in these events, we're doing a lot more learning together. It's still interactive, as you can see, where we can ask questions and whatnot. But it's not the kind of small, intimate experience that we're getting in our mentorship groups, but we're getting a ton of teaching. So lots of rich learning happening in our weekly events. Also in the month, when you are in a mentorship group, you're going to have a second session mid-month with your small group and your navigator. So your navigator is a member of your group, just like you, an artist who's there for mentorship, but they're also an assistant to the mentor, and they're kind of a group captain for your small group. So your navigator leads that mid-month session, and it's a more casual 1 hour check-in. So that's when you can kind of connect better with your small group without the mentor there. You can get to know each other a bit better. You can ask questions about the homework, share about what's going on in your month, get support and encouragement, as we humans tend to need, which is good, and we don't get enough of. What you'll find happening, and which is the life-giving part, is that you're going to become friends with the people in your group, very likely. And the benefit of that is not just the being human part, and this is good, but also that the more comfortable you feel in your group, the more vulnerable you're going to feel you're able to be in your mentorship session. And when you feel like safer, have that kind of safe community, you're going to be able to ask more questions, because I know not everyone is comfortable doing that. You're going to be more open in sharing what you're learning and what you're struggling with. And lo and behold, you're going to learn much more quickly because of that safe environment. So it's a win-win-win. And then, of course, these events has the larger community, and you get to work with more mentors in these events. We'll do panel discussions together, live critiques, demos. So you're going to be working with more mentors than just the one in your mentorship group. Oh, I am rambling a bit. I'm going to show you the website, how you can do that. I did mention there's a few ways to join the community. So there's 2 levels of mentorship groups. One is working with a master artist, and one is working with a professional artist. They're exactly the same, except that it's a master and one's a professional. The professional mentorship is a smaller price point, which I can show you. And the third way is joining with an events membership, which I will be giving away one here shortly. So an events membership gets you into all of our weekly events like this. You also get access to the recordings of the events. So if you can't make it, if you're late, you just need to watch it again and again, you can do that. Then you also get added to our online chat platform so that you can be part of the community on our chat platform. You can be meeting other artists and some of our mentors and whatnot. And it's a great place, a great first step to come in if you're not quite sure who you want to be mentored by, or you just want to check out the community for a while before you dive in to mentorship too. And then you can transfer at any time if you want to join a mentorship group. So I'll just show you how to do those 3 things. It's pretty easy. All right, so when you come to mastrius.com, you're going to land right here on the home page. There's lots of good info here you should check out. When you're ready to look at a mentorship group, you're going to go to mentorship groups. You can search all artist mentors. Just an FYI, we have also launched into photography. And you can search by name if there's someone in particular you're looking for. I'll go through the search, all of the artist mentors here. You will arrive at this page, which gives you a bit more info. We feature a few mentorship groups, and then you'll come to this big grid. And on this grid is every single one of our artist mentors. And we have a lot right now because we're growing quickly because the need is great. So how that and use this filter, the yellow filter here. So you first would pick your stage. There are definitions of how we define these for the sake of getting everyone in your group to be at a similar stage. So if you're aspiring or emerging, let's say you're emerging, and then you can choose your medium. Maybe you have more than one. You can choose a specialty if there's something really in particular you're coming for. You can choose the day of the week that you're available. And then you can choose if you want to work for a master, and these are Canadian dollars, or a professional artist. I'm curious if we're going to have any professionals. No, okay, so I'm going to pop in. We have more masters than professionals currently. So, all right, so these will be your options then. And if you want to whittle it down, you can change your filters as well. All right, so let's pop in at, how about artists? So these ones are marked as full, but you can see that there are open groups as well. All right, every mentor has their own page on the website. You just click their box and it will bring you to their page. So this is Jean Peterson's. This is all about her mediums, artist statement. You can check her out on socials and her website, see images of her work. Her group details, which I'll come back to, her expertise. So this is where you're going to look for a match with your mentor. We have 3 categories of expertise: technical, marketing, branding, and business. Our mentors choose which ones they are would consider their expertise and their passions. So this is what Jean has chosen for herself. If you are coming to Mastrius to look for all the business side, you would want to go and look for someone who has more of these checkboxes on the business side. If you're looking for more technical, then you will see kind of the areas that Jean is focusing in on. There's a definition of emerging artist. For those who work with aspiring or accomplished, the definitions are on their page as well. More about how it works, more about Jean, and then back up to these group data boxes. So Jean is working with emerging artists and aspiring artists. She's a master, so it's at the master level pricing. Her next session for emerging group is October 25th, and it repeats on the 4th Tuesday of every month. And that's kind of how we do that monthly repetition, same day of the same week. And then there's the time, it's 2 hours. And then there's other time zones because we have a global community. So keep in mind that the mentorship is 2 hours. It is very rich, but this price also includes all the weekly events. It includes your mid-month session with your navigator and group. And it also includes actually sprints. We have a few short courses that are only available to Mastrius members, like how to photograph your artwork. What else do we have? How to do Instagram for beginners, that sort of thing. Jean also has an aspiring group, different day of the week, time is similar and whatnot. So when you find the group that is a good fit for you, you would add to cart, which will bring you through a registration process. You will become a Mastrius member, which will give you access to our chat platform. Before I show you that, I want to show you the events membership. So under events, you can see what's coming up. Here's the events membership. Our art show submission stuff is here, etc. If you don't win the 1 month events membership today, then you can go grab one. They're only 19 bucks Canadian a month. And again, that gets you into every live event. You also get access to the recordings. You also get added to our chat group platform, and you get access to those sprints, the short courses that I mentioned. Anyway, so when you become a member, anyway, whether it's events or mentorship, you get added to Mastrius chat. And this is where we are connecting all day long, all month. So every mentorship group has a private channel. This is what they look like on the outside. I can show you very quickly on the inside. They're considered private and confidential. So I'll go into my group, but I'll go quick. So you can see that we're sharing images, we're chatting, you can tag each other, you can do group message. It's a nice place just for you and your group. Your mentor also has access here as well, but this is where you're going to spend more time with your group and navigator. The session links are right here. Everything you need is right here. And what else? Oh, when you go back to the main page in Mastrius chat, this is where you find all the events stuff. So in the right-hand column, you're going to see here's the link to apply for the art show, although you could also get that from the main page. If you want tickets to our in-person event, that's here. It's also on the main page. So to get your free ticket to events, it's right here. You have to register for the event, and then you'll get a link. The event recordings are just below that. So if you want to see Mark Rambaud's 2-hour live demo from last week, you can watch that here. And before that, I interviewed Shannon Amy, one of our professional artist mentors. You can watch that interview. Here's our sprints that I talked about, the short courses, Instagram, photographing your artwork, and we have a new one. And this is a full course with Mitchell Albala. Yeah, anyway, so that's kind of all that you would be getting as a member, and that is with events membership or with the mentorship membership. One really important thing I'll say before I draw a name is that you're not locked in. A membership goes month by month. You have access to it 24/7. You can cancel it anytime. You can transfer it anytime if you want to go from events to mentorship. Yeah, so that's within your control 24/7. I also should have mentioned that the small groups for the mentorship are up to 8, plus your navigator and your mentor. So that's where we max them out. So it's a very small group. And you can actually join a group that's already been meeting because it's mentorship. It's not a course. It's not the same, like you're not gonna miss important things. Like a course, you might miss elements. Mentorship is kind of more organic. It's a conversation. There's always time for questions. There's often revisiting of stuff that was covered before. It's more of a professional relationship with your mentor within the small group. So you can join a group that's already been meeting. Our navigators make sure that you are welcomed and you get to watch the last session. So the mentorship groups sessions are recorded as well. They are locked in the private group channel on the chat platform. They're private and confidential just for the group. So the group can watch it all month long. So yeah, that's another perk, is that the mentorship, if you're late, if you miss a session or you really want to watch it again and again, you can do that for that full month until the next session, and then we replace that recording. Oh, so lots of value. If you have questions, pop them in the chat. And we are going to draw a winner for the 1-month events membership, which would be, okay. All right, we're going to do something different this time. If you are not a member and you would like to have this 1-month events membership, the first person to say I'm new in the chat gets it. That was fast, Julie. Oh, Ellen, just about. Oh, that's funny. Sometimes we can see who's in the back end who's new, and sometimes we can't. So Mike couldn't see. Oh, awesome. Thank you, guys. Julie was the first one. Yeah, you bet, Julie. If you didn't get it, go grab one. They're not that expensive. We give one away at every event too. So keep coming back and you might win. Thank you so much for joining us. That was a lot of fun. I hope that I answered some questions for you. If you're on the website and you're trying to pick a mentor or something you're not sure about, there's a little Facebook chat that you can, it's a bubble that you can pop open and send us a question. That goes to our team. Send us any question. We help people all the time figure out if they're aspiring, emerging, or accomplished. And actually, I'll just quickly show you if you're still interested on the website. Let me close this down. We'll go back to the main website. If you go to the Start Here page, there's some more information. You can see the pricing table, go to how it works. The definitions for aspiring, emerging, and accomplished are on this page right here. So read those up. If you're still not sure where you land, there's a questionnaire here that will give you a few more questions that will help clarify it. And if you're still not sure, at the bottom of the questionnaire, there's a way that you can send us an email and we can help you figure it out. And we're happy to do that. And if you go to the mentorship page and you are still having a hard time narrowing it down of which mentor you might want to work with, send us a note on that Facebook chat. And we have artists on our team that will help you choose the mentor that's a good fit. And since I'm still sharing, if you join a group and it's not a great fit, you thought you picked the right mentor, you thought you were emerging, and you get into the group and you feel like, oh, this might not be the right one for me, not a problem. Let us know, let your navigator know, shoot us a message on the website, email us, whatever it might be, and we will help you to transition to a new group. We can help you find a better fit. Because it's mentorship and it's a relationship, it's not like picking curtains, you know, it can be a little bit more, I don't know, more subjective. So if it's not a great fit, we can move you over to a different group. That's not a problem. All right. Well, thanks for coming again. And you can email us at mastrius@mastrius.com, and hopefully we'll see you again. Take care.